Many years ago, when I was a kid, I used to go sledding with my younger brother every time it snowed. There was a hill at a park a few blocks away, and we could walk to it. Every time it snowed, we would go there, and all the kids from the neighborhood would go to it as well. One year, when I was about 10, me and my little brother, who was 2 years younger than me, noticed it was snowing out. It was already nighttime, but as it was a Friday, we knew the next day our local hill would be packed with kids, so we asked our mom if we could go that night. I don't know exactly what time it was looking back, but I'd guess it was about 7 or 8 o'clock. Our mom said we could, but we had to be back within an hour. My brother and I got on our winter coats and snow pants and took our sleds to the hill. It took maybe 10 minutes for us to walk to the park, and as we were walking, the snowfall got heavier and heavier. By the time we got there, it was really coming down, and we saw that there was nobody else at the park at all. The hill was getting coated in fresh snow. My brother and I raced up to the top and then slid down. It was great to have the whole park to ourselves, sliding down and going back up over and over again. One of the times when we reached the top of the hill, we noticed a man standing towards the bottom of it. He was really far away, but he appeared to just be staring at us. It was kind of weird to see an empty park at night in the middle of a blizzard with just one man standing at the bottom of a hill staring. My brother and I decided to wait for a minute or so to see if he would go away before we slid down the hill again. He kept standing there for at least a minute or so, maybe 2, and finally walked about 20 feet away and sat on a park bench, but continued to watch us. My brother and I were naturally taught to be careful of strangers, and the guy was seeming suspicious. We decided to slide down the hill one more time and then leave the park to go home. When we got to the bottom, I saw a closer look of the man. He seemed sort of old, but I couldn't make out much else in the snowfall and him wearing a big coat. My brother and I then walked out of the park and left. We walked home in the snow for roughly the 10-minute walk. When we made it back home, we got back inside and had some hot chocolate. After that, we got ready for bed. As I was going down the hallway from the bathroom to my bedroom, I noticed something out the window. The man who we had seen at the park was standing at the edge of our yard on the street, staring at our house. I called my brother over, and just after he got there, we watched the man walk away. He didn't get into a car or anything, he just walked down the street. But after that, he was never seen again. A couple of years ago, I was going on a long road trip for work, which I did quite often with my old job. It was wintertime, and as I drove down the road late at night, I noticed it start to snow. Pretty soon, it was a heavy snowfall that was sticking on the ground and causing the road to become very slippery and dangerous to drive on. I hadn't really been paying attention to the weather, but I knew at this point it would be dangerous to continue. I decided to pull off the freeway at the next stop, hoping there would be some hotels or something. Unfortunately, there were none, and the next stop was just a truck stop. I pulled into it off the freeway anyways, and saw a decent amount of trucks and other cars there. The place was starting to get busy from all the snow and the people getting off the roads. I went around and parked in an open parking spot, and decided to just sleep there and wait out the snow. It was a busy road I had been on, so I figured it would get plowed overnight. I went inside the truck stop to use the bathroom, and then walked back out to my car. As I did, I could already see almost an inch of snow had fallen onto my car. I got into my car and began covering up my windows. I did the same thing for whenever I slept in my car. I covered all the windows with certain blankets that I had, so nobody could see in the car at all. Then I laid in the back seats of my car, which was just long enough for me to lay down in. I had several other blankets that I had in back with me, so I wasn't too worried about getting cold. I closed my eyes, and it didn't take long for me to fall asleep, but I woke up sometime in the middle of the night. I had no idea what time it was. I'd been sleeping well, so I knew something had woken me up. I couldn't see out of any of my windows because of the blankets. Then I heard the sound of a scratching coming from the outside of my car. It got louder and louder. It sounded like it was on my driver's side. It stopped for a minute, but eventually I heard someone try to open the driver's door to my car. I wasn't quite sure what to do because nothing like this had ever happened before. I laid there for about a minute as whoever was there tried to enter my car, testing out each door one at a time. I was really happy that my car was locked. I looked at my phone and thought about calling the police. It was 4:30 in the morning. Then the noises stopped, until suddenly I heard a loud bang come from the back window next to me. Thankfully, the window didn't break, but I thought it might, so I jumped and got into the driver's seat and started the car. I pulled the blanket off the window and drove away. I could feel myself sliding in the snow as I did. I looked in my mirror and saw someone, but couldn't make out anything about them. It was snowy and dark, and they were a good 30 feet behind me. I kept driving back onto the road, which was not as slippery as it had been before, but it was still lightly snowing. I slowly and carefully drove up about 20 miles to a town with a hotel and slept there the rest of the night. This happened when I was 15. I was a sophomore in high school and got home from school one afternoon in December to realize I was home alone. I saw a note on the counter from my mom saying that her and my dad were going shopping and would be back later that night. She left me some money to order a pizza, which I was pretty excited about. I did my homework, then ordered the pizza and watched TV. Then I played some video games. It had been snowing earlier in the day, and by the time it was 7 p.m., it was really coming down. I kept playing video games, and finally at about 9, my mom called me telling me she was on her way home, but might not be there for another hour or so because of the snow. I decided to go outside and look to see just how much we had gotten. I was also going to maybe shovel the driveway. I stepped out the front door to see several inches of fresh snow everywhere. It was so smooth, except for this one place. I noticed some footprints in the snow that were in my yard. There seemed to be someone who walked in my yard and then went over to the garage. It was strange to me. There usually weren't people walking in my yard. I went back inside and suddenly had the thought to check the garage door, which was connected to our house. I went over to it and saw that it was unlocked. I started to walk closer to lock it, but thought I heard a noise right from the other side of it. This really freaked me out, and I ran upstairs to my room. I locked my door and hid under my bed. About a minute later, I heard the noise of my garage door opening. I wanted my parents to get home badly, but knew they wouldn't be home for almost an hour. I heard the sounds of someone walking around downstairs in my house. At that point, I decided to call the police. Thankfully, I had my phone on me, and I dialed 911. I spoke as quietly as I could, and hoped whoever was downstairs didn't hear me. I could barely hear them walking around downstairs, and I heard them walking around for quite a while. I had no idea what they were doing, but I was kicking myself for not making sure the garage door was locked earlier. I sat upstairs under my bed until I started to hear the footsteps coming up the stairs. It was the most scared I had ever been, until finally I heard the sound of police sirens off in the distance. The footsteps then went back downstairs and seemed to leave. I waited until the police came inside my house to leave my bedroom. When I did, I saw the main level of our house was all messed up. My parents were called and got home a little bit later. It seemed like just a typical break-in of a guy trying to find valuables in our house. I'm just glad I was able to get upstairs and call the police when I did.